Okay, so this afternoon, we'll first have a discussion group because people tend to get a little tired afterwards, but if they talk, they're awake. So we'll do some discussion, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll have some more Dharma teachings after that. Okay. So I thought, since we, want to create happiness out of wisdom, from having wisdom, that we'll discuss a little bit some of our speech patterns and how to create happiness from speech. And in particular, I'm debating whether we should talk about lying or harsh words. Or divisive speech is also a good one. Which one do you want to do? How many want to do lying? No. How many want to do divisive speech?
All of the above.
A few. Okay, we'll do all of them. Okay, that's good. Okay, so we'll start. We'll recite the Buddha's mantra 3 times. You'll catch on, and then have a few minutes of silent meditation just to center our mind. And then I'll pose some questions. And this is while you're meditating. And think about the questions. I'll give you a short time in the meditation to think about it. Then after the meditation, when I ring the bell, after that, we'll break into small groups of, 5 people each, and then discuss our reflections on the topics of the meditation. And when we do the discussion, each person, one at a time, talks about their reflections in a personal way. So we don't talk about other people's harsh speech. We talk about our harsh speech, okay? And so everybody will talk, maybe 3 minutes, so not your whole life story, but, something short, just sharing your reflections. Each of the 5 people will do this, and during that time there's no crosstalk. But then after that, after each person speaks, then you can have some crosstalk in the group. And then I'll come back when your small groups are done, and we'll have a little bit of debriefing together. Okay? So let's start with the Buddha's mantra, and then go into the breathing meditation. Taya tao muni muni maha muni soha. Taya tao muni muni maha muni soha. Taya tao muni muni maha muni soha. So lying, I think we all know what it is. It's saying the opposite of what is true. Divisive speech is talking behind other people's back in order to create disharmony, so that one person doesn't like another person. We may talk badly about them to each other behind their back, causing fractured relationships and preventing people who are not getting along from reconciling. And the third one is harsh speech, saying things that hurt other people's feelings, either in a nice tone of voice or a angry tone of voice, ridiculing them, teasing them, calling them names, swearing at them, and so on. So of these three, lying, divisive speech, and harsh words, which one do you do most frequently? Which one is a bigger problem for you in your life? And when you select that one, think about the kind of problems that that behavior has caused you in your life. And whichever of those three you suggested, look at that one in particular, and what pattern do you see in how you lie or how you use divisive words and harsh speech? What patterns do you see in your own behavior? And what kind of patterns in your motivation? What kind of habitual motivation do you have for that kind of speech? So when you look at the habitual ways of interpreting other people's actions and your habitual emotional responses to them that cause you to have a habit of speaking in one of these three ways. You look at all of that. What ideas do you have for how to look at the situation differently so that instead of wanting to harm others, you are able to have some compassion for them? How else could you see situations? How else could you create a kind motivation within yourself? So just brainstorm with yourself some ideas. So I'll repeat the questions so you can remember them. The first one is of the three specific ways of, non-virtuous speech: lying, divisive words that causes people not to get along, including venting, talking behind somebody else's back. And then the third one is harsh words, directly criticizing, insulting, ridiculing, and so forth, somebody else. Of those three, which one do you do most often, or which one has the impacts you the most, causes you the most problems in your life? Okay, you just got to select one of the three. And then the second question is, what habits do you see in how you do that specific action? So, for example, if it's lying, who do you habitually lie to? What matters do you habitually lie about? And what kind of motivation do you have for doing this? In other words, what's the story you're telling yourself, and what kind of emotion do you have that prompts you to speak in that way? And then the third question is, by looking at the first two and understanding what the action is and how you're thinking, and why you do that, what your intention is, then what ideas do you have for counteracting that way of speech? Okay, because if it's causing you problems in your life, and you remember the problems, then of course you want to counteract it. And we don't want to stuff down our emotions. That doesn't do any good. But how else could we look at the situation so that instead of getting angry, maybe we have some compassion? Or maybe we can't go to compassion. Maybe we just go to having a balanced mind of tolerance. Okay? So those are the three questions. So you'll divide into groups in a minute of 5 people. If you're here with a friend or a relative, go to different groups. Okay? So that way it gives you a chance to talk to some new people. And then, you can move the chairs around and so on and form your little circle. And then each person, one by one, shares their reflections on these 3 questions, and for about 3 minutes or so, and then the next person does, and the next person, until all 5 people have spoken. During that time, no crosstalk, but after everybody's spoken, and everybody must speak, then you can have some conversation and crosstalk and Q&A and so forth about it. Okay? So that will go for maybe 35 minutes, something like that. We'll see. And then I'll come back and we'll do some debriefing. Okay? So we're not going to number off like in kindergarten. Just, find 4 other people who are not close friends or relatives and form your group and begin the discussion. So, was the discussion useful? Did you discover that you're not alone? That maybe you have some competition for who's the worst person? Okay. So, what points came out of the discussion that, especially struck you? And what did you hear in the discussion that was, really kind of made you think? Yeah.
I talked a lot about moralistic aversion, and I think somebody else mentioned the importance of empathy, and how important it is to see where the other person's coming from as opposed to just immediately reacting against that, and just seeing all the conditions that led them to get to that moment and know that maybe that's just the way things are, and you can learn to accept, the person and try to work on yourself and what caused that kind of anger or aversion, as opposed to just lashing out, even if it's externally via speech or internally via these thoughts and emotions.
Yeah, okay. So you discovered there's a choice in the process. Yeah? That it isn't that anger, revenge is the only possible way to respond to something. Yeah, that there's a choice and that there are other ways to respond if we slow down and if we learn what those other ways are and practice them when we're not in the heat of the moment. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
In our group, there was a common theme that none of us liked being hurt. And that generated some of the bad behavior.
Yeah. Now, isn't that amazing? We learn that none of us like to be hurt. Yeah. How often do we think about that? Because we know it, don't we? That nobody likes to be hurt. But when things happen and when we're going through our daily life, we're usually thinking, I don't like to be hurt. We're not thinking the other person doesn't like to be hurt. Kind of amazing, isn't it? How this universal quality we think belongs only to ourselves. And that everybody else should not hurt us because we don't like to be hurt. But just because they don't like to be hurt, that doesn't mean we should be careful with what we say to them. We should be able to say anything we want. Yeah? It's a dangerous way of thinking, isn't it? Yeah? So this universality is something quite important, to really imprint in our mind again and again and again, not just up here, but to move it down in here, that everybody wants happiness and no one wants suffering. And we're all equal in that regard. And there's no difference between ourselves and others. Someone else? Yeah.
When we were talking about that space, when we give ourselves space, how it gives us a chance to reflect on things like using more skillful means, and also reflecting on our self-cherishing attitude, looking at that, and who we're really thinking about is ourself, and how we can turn that around to benefit others, rather than just stewing about how we were hurt or what happened to us, and trying to take the perspective of the other person.
Yeah.
That time gives us room for cogitation.
Yeah. So to slow down a little bit before we respond and really think about how the situation looks from the other person's viewpoint and what they're feeling and what their needs are, instead of just thinking about me. And so how valuable it is to slow down. It's hard to slow down, though, isn't it? Yeah? I don't know about you, but when somebody says something I don't like, it's like I have to say something now. Otherwise, what they said might contaminate the entire universe. Yeah? Little bit exaggerated. What else? Yeah.
You talked about like divisive speech and venting when you complain, even if you just complain to yourself about somebody, how good it feels. So it's hard to break that habit because
Yeah.
it feels good.
Yeah.
So you have to come to
Right.
the realization that it feels good, but it's not good.
Yeah. And how wonderful it feels to sit and just vent all our anger and shred somebody with our speech, we don't want to say it directly to them, because then we may have to face what they say back to us. It's much nicer to say it behind their back and shred them so that everybody else sides with us. Any of you do that? You know? So sometimes it's, we really want, like in the office or wherever, whichever group we're in, we tell others because we want them to have our perspective against this other person. Yeah, that's divisive speech. Sometimes it's, we say, well, I'm just venting. Yeah. But if we look deeper, because if we're venting and we want help with our own anger, then we would say that explicitly to the other person. What I'm saying right now really doesn't have anything to do with the person that I'm mad at. It has to do with my mind and my intolerance, and I'm telling you this so that you can help me gain more tolerance and fortitude and kindness in this situation. Then that's one thing, because there we're genuinely seeking help for our own problem. But unless we're genuinely doing that, often our venting becomes divisive speech, because it's like, let's get everybody agreeing with me about how mean and rotten that person is. Because then I'm right and they're wrong. And so initially, like you said, it makes us feel good. But if we really look, do we really feel good? After the
fact, later then you go, oh.
Yeah. 15 minutes later, we feel like, what did I say? What did I do? This was not such a good, wise decision to speak like that. Anything else? Yeah.
It was interesting to hear how the community at large also impacted our behavior, because like you had mentioned, like if in the office or workplace people are, being divisive, then it's easy to contribute to that. It's, partly for bonding, and in addition to your own, this is all related to oneself, but even for bonding, so many different reasons, but that's environment just seemed to make sense.
Yeah, so the environment can encourage wrong speech. And amazing how we use wrong speech or harmful speech to bond with other people. Let's all gang up and make that person in the office the black sheep. Then we're all bonded together thinking how good we are, and they just happen to be the civilian casualty. Yeah, except when that civilian casualty is us, then we have a different view. Yeah, but amazing how we can use, destructive behavior to bond with others, to feel like we have something in common, that to fit in with them. And so, as those of you who are parents, I'm sure that you tell your kids, don't be influenced by peer pressure. But as parents, are you influenced by peer pressure? Yeah, we sure are, aren't we? We haven't stopped being teenagers. Yeah. We want to fit in, and we'll do anything to fit in, almost. And then that leads to creating a lot of destructive karma, to a lot of problems in relationships with people in this life. Okay, so if we take the time and think about things, and see how the situation looks from another's perspective, and what their needs are, what their concerns are, then it might be much easier to respond in a kinder way with more understanding rather than vindictive, harsh speech or, gossiping behind people's backs. Okay? So, let's just chant the dedication. We'll take a 20-minute break and come back at 3:45 for the last two types of wisdom. Pardon? Yeah, I know. Are you sure? Does the first verse do to this, man? Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, we do the same chants at the Abbey, but our wording is different. So, we'll read these. You want to? It's in virtuous actions. May I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Okay, so let's come back at 3:45.